He had the fuse, he had the lantern, he had enough powder to tear England open. What Guy Fawkes had not planned for was the waiting. War is easier when it is loud. War likes drums, orders, mud, horses, smoke, men at your shoulder, and some bastard shouting that God is with you, because men are always saying that just before they ask other men to die. A sailor is different. A sailor has no trumpet for the blood. A sailor gives a man his own breath back and makes him hear what sort of creature he truly is. The undercroft stank of damp timber, old coal, wet stone, sulphur, saltpetre, and a soldier left too long with his thoughts. The barrels squatted about him in the lantern glow like blunt black beasts, patient and full-bellied, 36 of them. He had counted them once, then again, then once more, because counting barrels was plain work, and plain work is a mercy when the mind begins to wander towards the thing itself. Above him lay Parliament, above that England, oak beams, boards, chambers, tapestries, men in beds, men in prayer, men in drink, men who would rise with titles on their tongues and laws in their hands, and no notion at all that death was sitting underneath them with a slow match and a soldier's face. Guy rested one gloved hand on a barrel lid and felt the damp in the wood, cold, swollen, honest. Better to touch that than his own mouth, which had gone dry again. He shifted on the low stool. The wool of his cloak pulled at the back of his neck. His sword belt pressed his hip. The lantern smoked. Somewhere in the walls a rat scratched, stopped, scratched again. A man could go mad beneath Westminster by inches, not from torture, from listening, he told himself, as he had told himself before, that this was war, not murder, war. It was the old argument. And like most old arguments, it had worn grooves in him. He knew them all by feel. He had them ready as a priest has Latin, the fines, the searches, the hunted masses, the old faith cornered like vermin in its own country, the sneering promises, the king who had been hoped for and found wanting, the long English habit of calling oppression order when it dressed itself properly. War, then. A soldier understands necessity. He had said as much often enough in rooms where other men nodded, thumped tables, clenched fists, drank courage, and praised one another's resolve. In such rooms conviction comes cheap. It passes from man to man like a warm cup. Each feels stronger for holding it. Each hears his own courage in the mouths of the others. Below Parliament there was only one cup, and it was empty. Guy bent, checked the slow match again, then the tinder, then the lantern wick. Though all three had been correct a moment before and would be correct a moment after. His fingers were steady at first, then not quite. He shut his hand. "Hold," he muttered. His own voice sounded wrong in the black, too small. A soldier's voice ought to strike off a wall and return with company. This one came back thin. He straightened and listened. Nothing. Then something. A faint knock overhead. Footsteps. One pair only, passing from one end of the world to the other. Slow. Unhurried. Not a lord. No lord ever walked like that unless he had misplaced a servant. A clerk, perhaps, or some yawning porter half awake before dawn. The boards above gave a soft complaint under him. Guy looked up before he could stop himself. There, exactly, a man above his head, living weight on timber, flesh over oak, breath over beam. The footsteps went on. Guy swallowed. He had meant to kill Parliament. Parliament was a thing, a machine, a mouth that made laws and fed men into prison. Parliament was broad enough to hate. Broad things are convenient. Parliament sat well in the head. realm, tyranny, justice, good hard words, noble words, words made to march. A single pair of feet did not march. They crossed, they paused, they shifted, they moved again. The sound passed. That should have eased him. It did not. He shut his eyes and dragged memory over himself like armor. Not here, elsewhere. Spanish service, camp smoke, iron pots, wet leather, men whose faith had to hide in no hedge and whisper in no loft, the solid shape of war, a pike in hand, powder honestly used, blood for blood, a thing done in the field where both parties could see the sky and know what day they died upon. Then another memory, sharper and nearer, a room in England, candle guttering, low voices, Catesby alight with purpose, speaking of kingdoms as if he could hold one in his fist, others listening, faces drawn inward by grievance and hope, and that old dangerous drink called certainty. We strike once, Catesby had said, and his eyes had done the work of a sermon, not for ourselves, for England made clean. England made clean. Fine words. Fine words are a marvellous way to wrap a filthy job. They keep the hands from noticing what they are about. Guy opened his eyes and looked at his hands. Strong hands, scarred hands, soldiers' hands, a little blackened at the fingertips from powder and lantern soot. Not priests' hands, not scholars' hands, hands for rope, steel, horse tack, match cord, lock and wheel. They had done harder things than strike a fuse. Had they? His stomach tightened, not from hunger, from that other inward pull, lower and meaner, the body's mutiny. He breathed through his nose and tasted sulphur. Above him, a cough cracked the boards. He froze. Then another sound, not speech, not clear enough for that. A murmur, a brief laugh, mild, human, the kind men give when they have slept or nearly slept, and the day has not yet chosen its ugliness. Guy stared up again. He pictured them because now he could not help it. Some servant setting down papers, some clerk warming hands, some old court hanger-on sour with the cold, some messenger wishing for breakfast. Men he would have called enemies at table because tables make enemies tidy. Men who, taken one by one, might talk of chilblains, wages, wives, debts, and the river stink. Men who had not come down here, men who did not know him, men who would burst all the same. He clenched his jaw until it hurt. No, he whispered, though whether to them or to himself was not clear. He tried prayer. It came dry. He tried anger. That came easier for a moment, but anger is hot and short-lived, and the seller was patient. He tried contempt. That lasted less than either. Contempt likes an audience. It fades quickly in the dark. A bell sounded far off through the city, faint, muffled by stone and dawn and distance. London stirring, barges on the river, cook fires, stable boys, priests in hiding, watchmen, bakers, women throwing open shutters to cold grey morning, England going about its business overhead like a body unaware of the knife laid beneath its ribs. He laughed once, then without mirth. Changing a kingdom, it turned out, involved a great deal of sitting still and growing damp. The laugh died fast. Something scraped beyond the outer door. Guy rose so quickly the stool rocked back and tapped stone. He snatched it up right before it clattered. His breath stopped halfway in him. He stood with one hand on the lantern, one near the slow match, head turned. A scrape, then silence. His heart struck hard once, then again. He could feel it in his neck, in his tongue, in the heel of his hand. A key? Had that been a key? He moved nearer the barrels, lantern low, every step measured so the floor would not answer him. The door remained shut, the black line beneath it held. No light came under, minutes stretched. He imagined the latch lifting, imagined a face, imagined striking flame at once, not from resolve but from panic, and then what? A rush, a flash, himself torn apart with the rest, nameless in the blast he had not even timed correctly. Not martyrdom, botchwork. The silence lengthened until it became its own humiliation. Nothing, no key, no door, only some old board settling, some timber objecting to damp, some harmless sound that had reached into his guts and taken hold like a hand. Guy let out a slow breath, and with it went more strength than he liked. That spent you, he said to himself, and that was the trouble. The body has only so much fear to fling at a wall before the wall stays standing and the body begins to shake from the waste of it. His fingers no longer trembled in warning, they trembled from use. He flexed them. It did no good. His mouth was sour. Sweat cooled beneath the wool at his back. The lantern felt too heavy for its size. He set it down carefully because he did not trust himself to hold it long. He thought of the others then, not warmly, not bitterly either, merely truly. They were elsewhere. They had set the wheel and gone from the room, as men do when the room is about to become dangerous. Fine planners, brave plotters, good Catholic gentlemen, several of them. God keep them, God damn them. He did not know which prayer suited the hour. He was the one beneath the House of Lords. He was the one with the match, the powder, the dark, the rat noise, the cough overhead, the wool at the throat, the damp in the knees, the sweat drying under the arms. Grand causes are always at their grandest in the mouths of men who are not alone with the barrel. A sound came again, not a scrape this time. Voices. Faint first, then nearer, more than one. Not overhead, wrong direction, lower, closer, real. Guy turned toward the door so sharply the lantern light lurched over the casks and made them seem to shift. A voice outside, muffled by wood. Below, another, firmer, practical, men at work. Then the unmistakable clink of metal against metal, a key touching others on a ring. For one strange instant calm came over him, not courage, not grace, merely the end of waiting. A thing about to happen is almost kinder than a thing that might. He took up the match. His thumb found the roughness of it. He knew exactly where the tinder lay, exactly how the lantern flame bent, exactly how many motions stood between thought and fire. A soldier loves sequence. Sequence saves men. Sequence kills them too. Outside, the key selected. Wrong one first, then another. A muttered curse. Guy held the match over the lantern and looked up. Not at a target now. At the floor. At the thickness of it. At timber that would shatter upward. At men above it who would become meat and splinters and smoke. Lords, yes. Bishops, perhaps. Judges, pages, clerks, servants, guards, men who carried cups, men who swept floors, men who were simply in the wrong room at the right hour for someone else's cause. He saw it then, plainly, too plainly, not justice, not cleansing fire, not a kingdom reborn, timber burst, flesh torn, a chamber becoming a butcher's tray in a single orange breath. The key turned. Guy did not move. That was the answer, and it arrived without rhetoric. He had been able to bear the idea. He could not wholly bear the deed. The latch gave. The door opened inward with a groan of wet wood and a wash of colder air. Light from without broke low across the floor, thin and grey. Shapes crowded it. Men, boots, cloaks. steel points catching lantern glow. "There," said one voice, clipped and startled. "Who's there?" Guy stood among the barrels with the match in his hand and the lantern at his feet. For half a heartbeat nobody moved. That is the awkward thing about catastrophe. Even when men come looking for it, they are a little surprised to find it sat waiting. Then all at once they did. "Seize him!" Guy snatched for the slow match. A guard lunged. Another crashed into him from the side. The lantern swung wild, struck stone, flared, nearly went out, then rolled and cast crazed light over barrel hoops, boots, hands, cloaks, faces gone pale with the understanding of where they were. "Mind the powder!" That sharpened every man in the room. Guy drove an elbow back, soldier fast, and heard breath leave someone. He reached again, fingers brushed cord. Another man seized his wrist. A third grabbed at his shoulders. They went down hard among the casks in a knot of grunting limbs and scraped leather and muffled curses, every man fighting with the care of those who know that one bad spark would make saints and fragments of them all. Guy strained once, twice, with the whole weight of him, strong, trained, desperate, not enough. His hand opened. The match fell from his fingers to the dirt, unlit. A boot pinned his arm, another pressed his neck. Someone tore the sword from his side. "Hold him! I have him! Lantern! Mind that lantern!" Guy stopped struggling then, not from nobility and not from peace, merely because the moment had gone and he felt it go. A current lost, a door shut. History, perhaps, if one wishes to be grand about it. But down there it felt smaller than that. It felt like failure in the hand. They hauled him upright. He looked once toward the fuse on the ground. There it lay, black, dry, harmless as string. The little thing on which kingdoms, sermons, laws, punishments, bonfires, bells, memory, and every fool's November had just balanced. He almost laughed again, almost. Instead, he let them drag him to the door. Upward he went from the black belly of the building he had meant to destroy. Up toward noise, judgment, daylight, and all the living England that had gone on breathing above his head while he sat below trying to decide whether he could become the man he had promised to be. In the cellar, the barrels remained where they were, the lantern guttered, and the fuse stayed in the dirt, unlit.